Hey everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on Adobe Illustrator. I have opened up actually my Creative Cloud page, as you can see here, and just double checking to make sure that these applications are all up to date, so Photoshop, Illustrator, and such, and it looks like we're in good shape here. So you might want to periodically, if you don't have this turned on automatically, is go in and just make sure that all your applications are up to date. So before we jump right into Illustrator, I thought what I'd like to do is kind of a little bit of an overview of some of these major tools that we work with every day, so that you know that you're working with the right application for the right type of project you're trying to solve. So Photoshop, for example. Photoshop is primarily a pixel-based program, which means it's best suited for working with photos or images that contain a lot of detail. You can use Photoshop to edit photos. You can create some graphics, logos. You can even design some website layouts. But because it's pixel-based, it's really not ideal for doing vector-based artwork, which is point-to-point. Illustrator, which we're going to talk about today, is a vector-based program, which means that it uses a mathematical equation to draw the artwork, which makes this ideal for creating graphics that can be scaled up or down without losing any quality. Illustrator is also great for creating logos, illustrations, complex typography. You most probably have your company logo done in Illustrator and saved as an EPS or an AI file, and those are very scalable. So you can use it on the side of a pencil, and you can blow it up to signage and other very large applications without losing any quality. And the last one I'm going to talk about here is Adobe InDesign, which we did a webinar on in 2022. And that, as you're probably aware, is a page layout program that's used for creating print, documents such as magazines, newspapers, flyers, books. You probably do corporate profile, your resumes, project sheets are probably all done with InDesign. It can also be used to create digital publications such as PDFs and ebooks. And as you know, that application has tools in there for adding text and images, objects, and color. It's kind of the compilation tool where you bring stuff that you've done in Photoshop and stuff you've done in Illustrator all into one package. So that's kind of the applications we work with daily, but today we're focused on kind of getting to know a little bit more about Adobe Illustrator. So let's get into it. Okay, so to demonstrate Illustrator, I thought it might be kind of interesting here. I'll bring up a demo that I've created last week. So obviously in the AEC industry, we are all out there looking for talent. Everybody's trying to hire somebody, and we post on social media all the time in terms of looking for various positions, engineers and technicians and all of that. And we post on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. And as you know, each one of those social media platforms requires different size graphics. So I created this fictitious piece to demonstrate how you can use Illustrator. And as I said, everybody out there is hiring, so what can we do that's a little bit different? Well, at Inchorus Group, we feed everybody on Thursdays. And so I'm going to show you guys how to create these ads, how to do that illustration of the piece of, or the slice of pizza. Okay, so let's launch Illustrator. And when you first launch the application, you should get this kind of welcome screen here. Allows you to open a new file, an existing file. And I would encourage, if you're new to this application, which if you're on this webinar, you probably are, is to take advantage of some of these tutorials that Adobe places within each one of the applications. They really are good. They're short, and there's all kinds of stuff in here. that gets you up to running quickly on Illustrator. So when you get a chance, do some of those. So we're going to click New File. And these are a bunch of presets that Adobe provides. And you can see along the top here, there's mobile. What it'll do is sort them for you, mobile or web or print. These are print sizes. A4 is a European page size, the typical US letter. And notice they're all right here in points in this particular setup, because I think my system is set up to default to points. Film, art and illustration, and there's more templates here, of course. Over to the right here, this is kind of where we can set up our initial document. We can set something up here, or you can actually go in and alter it. Once you're in the application, you can alter the page size. But I'm going to go and set this up. This is our units here, our scale. Notice that it's the first one here is pixels. And thanks to Tara, who found me this social media cheat sheet. I know that from the cheat sheet it says Facebook landscape graphics are 1200 pixels wide by 630 pixels in height. Notice I've got the landscape orientation chosen. If you reverse these dimensions, you'd end up getting the portrait one in here. Artboards refers to, if you were looking at InDesign and you had an insert number of pages, artboards is kind of the same thing, except that artboards will show up all in one file as opposed to having to scroll through page after page like you would in InDesign. I'm only creating one Facebook graphic, so I'm going to leave this artboard at 1. When I teach Illustrator to my design students at Fredonia, I'll tell them that they have to do, 10 to 12 to 20 different concepts for each design project. So they may have 10 to 12 to 20 different artboards inside one file. Color mode, I'm going to leave this set at RGB, which is good for digital. If we were doing a print, you would set it to CMYK, which is 4-color printing. I'm not going to worry about raster effects right now or the preview. And bleed, which is this section right in here, this really only comes into play if you were doing something again for offset printing, which we're not. So I'm going to hit create. And there we have a frame for a Facebook post. So before we get into starting our graphics, I wanted to come up here and just kind of show you another feature here. Workspace really allows you the option to kind of how you set up your space here in terms of where all your tools are. I kind of like, I'm going to go here to Workspace, the Essentials Classic. It gives me all of my tools over here on the left, gives me some options here, and then some property menus along in here. I like this setup, it works for me. So one of the other nice things that Illustrator has, actually I think all the applications have done this now, is that if you're new to the application and you're not exactly sure what some of these tools do, if you hover over the tool and just take your hand off the mouse, it gives you kind of a preview. And this one happens to be the selection tool, which is how you kind of grab and move things around the page. This one is the direct selection tool that you can grab points and do editing for shapes and such. I won't go through all of these, but you see what I mean. Like here's the eyedropper tool, right? And that's the gradient tool, and so forth. So you can take a few minutes and orient yourself in terms of what all of these various tools do. And notice that when there's this little arrow in the lower right corner, that means typically that there's more options in there. So here's the line segment tool, the arc tool, spiral tool, rectangular tool, and polar grid tool. I'll tell you, when Illustrator did a couple of releases ago, they started moving tools around. It took me sometimes forever to go in each one of those and try and figure out where the tool was that I needed. It was frustrating. But finally, because I've spent enough time in this application, starting to get the hang of it. All right. So let's start adding some graphics to our page. If you recall from the sample I showed earlier, at the very top of this I had a red bar, and then there was a gray bar at the bottom that matches, of course, our branding program. So I'm going to draw this red bar at the top, and to do this I'm clicking on the rectangular tool, and I'm going to put my cursor here in the upper left corner, click and hold, and I'm going to drag across the frame like that, and then it locks right to the other side. And if you look over here at these dimensions on the right, it'll show you that it's exactly 1200 pixels wide by let's just make it 30 pixels in height. Notice how right there the bar now just jumped over that 1200, and that's because this lock aspect ratio device is turned on. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to go back here and make this exactly 1200 pixels. So it's 1200 by 30, so it's nice and clean. I'm not exactly sure what this burgundy color is, but I know that I want it to match Pantone 186. So a couple ways I can do that. One is I can go up here to Window and go to Swatch Libraries, and Swatch Libraries, Color Books, and then down to Pantone Coded, put in 186, and gee, nothing is there. And I think part of this might be the fact that Pantone is not getting along, not playing nicely right now with Adobe, and I think some of the stuff is missing. I've got the most recent version of Illustrator, and some of my Pantone colors are missing. But it's not the end of the world. I'm going to click out of here. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to double click on this burgundy color. And I actually looked this up earlier on the web. You can jump here. I'll show you where I found it. Safari. I just said, hey, what's the hex color for Pantone 186? And it shows up right here. That's CF142B. So if we go back to Illustrator and I put that number, this is where your hex number goes, CF142B, and I hit enter, hit OK. That looks like our 186 red. The other thing you'll see here is that, so there's our foreground color. This is the outline. So this box has a black outline that I don't want. So I'm going to click on there, and I'm going to come up here and click no outline. So now we're clean there. Okay. I'm going to turn that off by just clicking back on the direct selection tool. So there's our red bar at the top. I'm going to create now the gray bar at the bottom, and this is obviously somewhat random, but I'm just going to pull this across like here. So you see the same thing, 1200 there, and let's make it a nice even number, so 160 pixels at the bottom. And I want to make sure that that is oriented right to the bottom like that. So red at the top, and I want this one to be gray, so I'm going to double click on my color box here, and I'm going to make this a gray. Let's find a good gray. Go neutral. None of those are good. Let's go back to color swatches. Let's go to black. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to now take the fill on this, and I want to bring it, I just clicked over here. There's also a color palette over here. I'm going to bring this back to kind of like a more our gray color, which is this kind of medium gray here. Click OK. Let's start to add some text to this layout. And to do that, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on the little T icon, which is our text tool. I'm going to bring my, come on, there we go. Over here onto my page. Notice the text is really quite small, 12 point. So let's try and bump that up so we can see what we're doing here. So I'm going to bring it up to, we'll start at 72. Now highlight the text by just clicking and then swiping backwards and I'm going to enter my text, free pizza, next line, on Thursdays. Okay. And then I think we had 1, 2, 3 dots. Yep. So now what we need to do is stylize or style this text to kind of fit the layout you saw previously. So I've highlighted the text again. Going to go up under character and click here. And this is where you access all the fonts that are on your system. I have, as a graphic designer, lots of them, as you might imagine. And I'm looking for our corporate font, which is called Nexa. And if I click here, it'll come down. I use it a lot, so it happens to show up in my frequently used fonts, which is the top of the list here. And Nexa Book is the one I'm looking for. I'm going to click on that. And here's the ability to kind of now style the text. As I mentioned earlier, we had it set at 72. It's quite small. I'd really want this to stand out. So I'm going to highlight that, and let's try doubling it to begin with. That's probably a little too large. So let's bring it down, maybe 120, somewhere in there. Maybe that's right. We can always resize it. And I'm going to, again, so you notice what I did is I touched the direct selection tool, and then I just clicked in, and I'm holding this down, and I can drag it around the page by just holding it there. One of the things I've noticed initially right here is just as I type this out, you can see that the letter spacing, and that is the distance between each one of these letters, is really quite wide and unacceptable, I think, by typographic standards. So I want to tighten up all of this, the letter spacing, and to do that, I'm going to again click on my type tool, highlight the text, and I'm going to come up here into this character palette and open that up again. And you see this little icon as the V/A. This is the tracking, and tracking refers to the distance, some numerical distance between the letter forms. And if I click up, notice it gets wider. If I click down, it gets a little bit tighter. I'm going to go down maybe to like -20, I guess is probably okay, something like that. It's a little bit tighter, it's easier to read, and it just looks nicer. And I'm going to click off of that for a second. So it doesn't look that bad. One of the other, tools in here, this is the kerning tool. Let me explain how that one works too. Just if I was to, let's say I type out W-A-O-P. So looking at the distance between these letters, you can see right here that there's a huge gap between the W and the A. It looks a little bit better here between the O and the P. So I want to tighten up the space between the W and the A, and this is called kerning. And kerning, what it does is it helps to draw letter forms closer together so they read better, it's legible, has a better relationship. I'm going to hit the character tool here. See how when I have the cursor in between two letter forms, it kind of defaults to this particular case, it's -35, but I think it needs to be more. And as I increase that, notice the letters are getting closer, which is better. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side of the A. And I'm going to tighten that one up a little bit. Right there. Of course, this is not a word. I'm just showing these examples. Anything with angled strokes, such as W, the A, they're always horrible in terms of the spacing right out of the box. You have to go in and kind of adjust them, especially when you're doing things like in a headline like this. You have to adjust that. So that's that. The other thing I've noticed is that the leading, and leading is the distance from the baseline of this line to this line, is a lot wider than it really needs to be, and I'd like to see it tighter to a point where almost touching, but not. So again, click on the T, come in here and highlight the text, go back to our character setup. Right now it's the leading, and that is the distance from one line to the next, is defaulting to 144 point, which again, like I said, it's a little too wide. So I'm going to tighten that up by just hitting that down arrow until we get to a point where I think it looks nicer. I think that's better. Yeah, so and click off my right there. So that looks pretty good. Not perfect, but it's good enough for what we're doing right now. Let's move this down a little bit. And then we had a secondary, we had a kind of a subhead on here that said, let's see, free pizza on Thursdays, ... if you work at in course group. Let's highlight all of that. Obviously 120 point is too big. It's the same size. Let's make it half of the size of the headline. And how about if I spell correctly here? Better. Still looks a little big. Let's try maybe 48. Maybe that's better. And let's bring it over underneath our headline. Something like that maybe. Bring it down here. I guess that's okay. Then we had some copy down here that said check out careers at incourse.com. So let's add that. Just put this randomly anywhere. Check out careers at incourse.com. Again, look at the leading, that's the distance between these lines. It defaulted to whatever I had up here. So we're going to go up to character and going to really tighten this one up. That looks better. Okay. And we're going to move that text. Again, I'm click and hold and drag. Notice that little green line that shows up. It kind of helps you to align objects as you're moving them around the page. And now I want to make this careers really pop, so I'm going to change the weight of that from the book to next to black, which happens to be right there. Okay. And then lastly, for this little block here, that text should be in white. It's kind of hard to read. There's not enough contrast on that gray. So I highlight the text. I can click here. I can click over here. Or I can go up here to my menu here and click on white, which is right there. As I mentioned, there's always lots of different ways to do something, a lot of places to find what you need in various menus. So we're good there. So got our text. And then lastly, I'm going to take and put our in-course group logo over here. So that is in a separate file. File open. That is on the desktop. Here, logos. We've got a file called white logo. And I think it's horizontal white logo. I can open that. Obviously, you can't see anything because it's white on white. So I'm going to just highlight everything and copy it. So copy is Control C, or you can come up under Object and hit where is here? I'm sorry, under Edit, Copy, right here, Copy. Jump over to my other file, which is over here, and I'm going to edit and paste. Sits right in the middle. Click and hold and drag it so it's down here. And I'm going to take the tagline off of the logo because if I make it real small, you won't be able to read it. And I'm going to take the logo now. I just highlighted everything, and I want to make the logo a little bit smaller to fit on this gray bar. If you look at this tool here, that's the scale tool. So I'm going to double click on here. And I want to uniformly make this logo smaller. Maybe I want to make it 75% of what it is now, I guess. And then I'm going to click on my selection tool, and I'm going to move that up into the bar, slide it over a little bit. It's still a little too large, a little clunky sitting inside that gray. You know, I think it would look nice if maybe the top of the logo was equal to, or the logo in terms of height was equal to the distance from the top of careers to the bottom of the incourse.com. Another way to resize something is if you were to hold the Shift key and click on that lower right corner. The Shift key allows you to maintain the aspect of the logo. If I let go, obviously it goes all wonky on me. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Check that. Better. Okay, so now we're going to slide that over here. And that looks pretty good. Now I want to take a look at all of this. So I'm going to go to View, and I want to zoom out. And now I can see everything here. And if I hold the space bar and I hold, if I hold the space bar, notice it turns into a little hand. And so now I can take and hold my mouse and move the whole page around. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Okay, I just realized actually in between those clips that I forgot to name this file, or to actually not name it, but to save it. So I did go and save the file, did File, Save As, freepizzapromo.ai, and I put that in that demo folder I've been working in. All right, so now we're ready to start the illustration of the pizza slice. I talked a little bit earlier about the artboards, and here I'm going to create a new artboard using this artboard tool down below so that I have some room to kind of work on our drawing. So I'm going to make a space like that. And now I've got a space to do the drawing here. And a lot of different ways to draw this, this wedge, but I'm going to use this tool here. It's called a shaper tool. And it kind of interprets the shape based on what you draw. So I'm going to draw this very crude triangle. Okay, what's going on here? Let's try this again. There we go. And it makes a very nice triangle. And now I'm going to kind of create that curve for the top of the slice. So I've got a curve there. I'm going to come over and line that up here, and I'm going to line this up with that edge. So now it looks like a cone, but I'm going to take these two pieces right here. I'm going to merge them. There's a tool over here called Pathfinder, and the very first one takes multiple objects and creates a compound shape on them. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll see that it has created a something that kind of looks like a wedge of pizza, I guess. The other thing I want to do here is I want to turn off that gray fill. I don't really need that. So I'm going to come over here. Notice it's gray here. I'm going to turn that off right there. Let's zoom in a little bit. I just did control the plus sign to get a little closer. And now I'm going to create the curve here, or actually to define where the edge of the crust is, right up at the top here. I'm going to use this pen tool. And the way this works is I'm going to click over here. I'm going to click on the left side, and I'm going to click and hold and drag, and it makes that curved shape. Notice like this, I can move it around just by holding it. You can make that curve. And let go. I'm going to come back here and turn that off. Okay, so there's a slice of pizza. Now I'm going to bump the weight of the stroke of this up. I think it's a little thin right now, and typically when you're doing digital work, you want to make sure that things have a certain thickness to them so they read well on screens. And remember, this is going to read on a laptop and an iPhone, and a phone and an iPad and things like that. So you want to have some. It wants to be legible. So with those selected, I'm going to come up here where it says stroke, and right now it's set at 1 point. I'm thinking it's going to be more like around 10 point. So that looks like a slice of pizza, I guess. The only thing missing is the pepperoni, of course. So let's make some pepperoni. So I'm going to take the ellipse tool. Same thing here. If I hold the shift key and I click and I drag, it keeps it it's a perfect circle. As soon as I let go, it deforms and creates various shapes. So, but I want it to look like a slice of pepperoni. So it looks pretty good. So I'm going to move that over here. And I want to repeat that. So I could draw another one, or I can come up to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste, and there it is. Keep going, Edit, Paste, and then Edit, Paste. All right, so let's So what if one of them like overlaps the edge of the slice like that? So we need to cut that portion off, right? So we're going to come up here to our cutting tool. Typically it's this one section here. It's got the eraser, the scissors, and the knife. I'm going to use the scissors, and I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to click right where it kind of overlaps the pizza, right there. Click here, and click here, and then click off, and then click on that section and delete. And that is our slice of pizza. Well, it is for right now. I mean, obviously we could spend a lot of time on it and make it even better, but for what we're working on, I think this will be fine. So last thing I want to do is I want to collect all of this and group it so that we don't move it and lose pieces and parts. So I just took my mouse and I dragged over the whole thing. Object, group, okay, and now I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it up onto my layout like that, and it looks a little funny kind of being at a 90 degree angle, so I'm going to spin it a little bit. The way I would do that, come over here to the rotate tool, click once, and if I click on the object anywhere on it, like there, that would be the center point of where it's going to rotate. And then I just move it like this. And then I want to move it down a little bit. So I'm going to put it like right in there somewhere. That looks pretty good, I guess. Last thing I want to do is get rid of this artboard. We don't need it. No sense keeping stuff we don't need. So right there, delete. Right there. And again, I'm going to save it. Do a file save. And we're good there. Okay, so we are in the home stretch. We're ready for the last part of this demonstration, I guess, or almost the last part. And now we need to create a graphic for Instagram. So this was the Facebook layout, and now we're going to convert this to another size for Instagram. So to do that, I'm going to create a little space. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go back to the artboard tool right here, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to come over here and create a space like right there. And while this is live right here, in other words, you can see it dotted line and the little grabber tools along the edge. Up here is where we can set the dimensions of that artboard. The first two refer to X and Y, so that's really kind of where it's located on the plane. But the second two, this is the width and the height of the graphic you're going to create. So if I go back to that cheat sheet that Tara found, Instagram says that a graphic for a post is 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels. So it's a big square. Let's zoom out right there. And if I click and hold this artboard, I just moved it kind of over here. All right, so that's good. So this one should go relatively quick. All it is a matter of copy, paste, and resize things to fit a new format. So I just highlighted everything on the Facebook graphic. I'm going to go up to Edit, Copy. I'm going to scroll over here to this one, and I'm going to go Edit, Paste. And if I click and I hold, I can kind of move it up there. And so now it's just a matter of taking this size and formatting it to fit a square. And I want to make sure that I'm oriented in the right space. Notice right here, as I just opened up this transform, it looks like it's sitting at that upper left corner, right? But actually it's not. It's off by about 0.5 pixel, which drives me nuts. So I want to make it exactly 0, 0, so we know that it's oriented to that upper left corner. Because if you don't, what happens, you go into Photoshop and you start to see these kind of white slivers and lines and things where it was close but not dead on. So 0, 0, hit enter, and we're good there. So I can, first of all, take this red band here at the top and resize that to fit this square. And how do I do that? Again, go back to the transform tool. Notice that the aspect ratio is turned off, and we know from just creating this graphic that the band is only, or the square is only 1080 pixels wide. So that's perfect. Okay, and let's take this gray band and we're going to move that down here to the bottom. Same thing. Now, do I know that for a fact that this is sitting right at that lower left corner? One way to find out, if I go to transform, and if you see this little grid over here to the left, this point that's right here where I'm pointing is that point right there. And if you notice when I clicked on it, it hit 1080, which means that that point is exactly where it should be. So we're good. All right, so obviously the gray band is wider than it needs to be, so we're going to click on that, and we're going to hit transform, and we're going to make this 1080. It's good. And now we're going to move the logo because obviously it's off the edge. And I'm just highlighted it, and now I'm just using my move keys on your keyboard, the left, right, up, down. Just going to click on the left arrow, and I'm going to shift this over to the left until it fits better. Okay, we're good there. So let's move our pizza slice out of the way for a moment. Let's move our text down. Again, I'm holding the shift key. I'm moving this down a little bit here, and I think we could resize this text to fit this much larger frame. What we probably should do is kind of stack it maybe. So I just clicked on the text tool. Notice I've got a blinking cursor, which means that that text is not live. Hit return. I'm going to try on Thursdays, which is fine. Thursday's a really long word, but maybe we can take the on and move that up. This is where it kind of gets, you got to kind of play with a little bit to see what's going to work. Let's highlight the text. Let's really drive the size up because we've got plenty of space to work with. So let's get it till it fits the frame. And let's make the leading, again, that's the distance between the lines. Kind of open up a little bit. Let's see how that works. Not bad. Let's move it down a little bit. Okay. Maybe move this down a little bit. And what we can do now is we can take our slice of pizza here. It looks a little lost in this upper corner because it's so small. And remember, because this is vector-based graphics, we can resize this and it has the same clarity at this size or larger or smaller because it's all point to point. So to increase the scale, there's a couple of different options. One is I can grab one of these corners, hit the shift key and grab this way, right? Or you can come over and hit that scale tool, which is right here. If I double click on it, I can add some kind of uniform dimension. So let's try 125. It's better. I'm going to go with this method here because then I can kind of scale it to what I think is going to fit. And I'm going to move that into here. So the pizza slice now kind of fits that void, especially right here we have this little gap from the word on in Thursdays. So this looks pretty good. The letter spacing looks reasonably consistent. The distance between letters. You don't want any big gaps. Notice here that the white space below the subhead looks a little less than it is here, so maybe I want to center that, so I'm going to just kind of take that and move it up a little bit. And that looks pretty good. All right. Okay, so this is the last step. We are going to now get these ready to be posted for social media. So we got to create some graphics that you can upload to Facebook and to Instagram. And so what we want to do is we're going to go up here to File, Export. A couple options here. Export for screens. This will do the same function as what I'm going to show you in a minute, but it's got a lot more variables that you really don't need to concern yourself right now. It's really meant for if you have a lot of artboards, a lot of assets you want to move to different places. You can work with this one, but it's gonna make it simple. We're gonna make our lives easier here. File, export, export as. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, and this is free pizza promo, and this one is for Facebook. So put dash Facebook, or however you want to do your file naming structure. Format, we're going to keep this as a PNG because actually PNG files work really well with graphics and illustrations. If this was more photo, if you're coming out of Photoshop, typically you'd want to use JPEG. There's more file compression in a photo, and so JPEG is a compressed file. PNG is not, so the quality is a little bit better, especially again for graphics and illustrations. So we're going to leave it as PNG, and we're going to separate these. We're going to use the artboards that we set up, and right now range, because page 1 was the Facebook. We're going to put in page 1, and I'm going to hit export, and this is going to go to, let's see, I think they had a demo folder in here somewhere. Desktop. Well, there it is right there. There's the SMP demo, and I'm going to create a new folder called post graphics. So however you guys set up your file structure, that's fine. Hit create, and I'm going to hit export. So it brings up this PNG dialog box. The resolution, because we're doing this for web, you can leave it at screen. Notice it can get really low res or very high res depending on what your application is. We're doing it for the web, which is 72 ppi, which is points per inch, pixels per inch. We're going to leave it type optimized. Okay, and in terms of background, maybe you're doing something where you want a transparent background. If you're doing like a silhouetted image or such, I'm going to turn this to white just so that it looks like our graphic up here, and I'm going to hit OK, and it's now saving to that folder. Let's do the same thing for the Instagram piece. File, export, export as, free pizza promo dash Instagram PNG. Use artboards, page 2. Sorry about that, my phone went off. You'd think I'd be smart enough to turn it off. Hit export, and same thing, screen, type optimized, white background, and hit OK. And we're good here. We'll do another file save. Right here, file save, we're all saved, OK. And let's close this for a second. Let's go over to our SMPS demo folder. Let's bring up the post graphics. There's the 2 of them, and I'm going to take this one, which is the Facebook, and I'm going to drag it on top of the Photoshop icon, which opens it in Photoshop, and there we are. It looks pretty clean. And if you want to check the file size, I would go up under image, image size, and you'll see that it's 1200 pixels by 630 pixels, and you hit OK. And you should be good now to upload this directly to Facebook, and the same thing holds true for the Instagram piece. So that's that. All right.